Hello and welcome once again to City Beat. I'm your host, Kent Robbins, and today we have two council members, Councilmember Robert Lilligren and Councilmember Sandra Colvin-Roy, here to talk about the highlights of the June 12th City Council meeting. Council members, welcome to City Beat.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We are going to talk a lot about transportation and about voting and about how we're going to vote in November. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Welcome back to City Beat. Today in the City Council we had some mention and during the week of neighborhood revitalization, and Councilmember Lilligren, you know, it's never far away from us.
Sure.
What is new in neighborhood revitalization?
Sure, and Neighborhood Revitalization, or NRP program,
Right.
has been a wonderful program that has really empowered our neighborhoods here in Minneapolis. It's been around for almost 20 years now, and it's just great throughout the city how you can point to so many areas where human capital or physical capital was developed through the program, and it's been in a series of phases, and we're sort of now towards the middle or end of NRP Phase 2. And as this 20-year program was developed, the funding is not clear at the end when you're at the beginning. And so as we move towards the end of Phase 2, we're a little more certain about what kind of funds will be available for the program. And this was a great action today, which the new projections show that more money is going to be available than we had projected for Phase 2 of NRP. And so the action today recommends that the neighborhoods go up to a higher level of spending on their neighborhood action plans, 90% of the total amount. So it's good news for our neighborhoods, good news for NRP Phase 2 for sure.
You know, it's a relief and almost a miracle that we're getting some good financial news for a change.
Right.
It doesn't happen that often. Or has it?
Agree.
It's true. I wonder if most people who are watching even know the relationship between the improvement in the market and the NRP funding. Mm-hmm. But it's an important connection to remember when we vote this July to recreate the TIF districts as transformation districts. It'll be a very good thing for neighborhoods because we'll have that dedicated stream of money.
Yes.
But although it's dedicated, we can't predict exactly how much it is. That's what Robert was just talking about. So a few years ago, we were getting very bad news, and so the NRP Policy Board voted to not let neighborhoods take 100% of what they expected, which was a very good move because we weren't getting 100% in. Now we're getting more through the door. They should be able to get up to 90% now of what they expected in Phase 2. Remembering that, when we vote in July to create the new transformation districts, we are going to be talking about more detail about what happens when that tax increment fluctuates.
Right.
In other words, we learned something.
Right. Well, seems the cautionary tale is that you have to look at your projections often and not and be ready to kind of scale back depending on what the stock market and everything else.
Well, I think that's right, Ken. Yeah. And the projections have to be conservative enough that people aren't having to scale back. It's better to plan within,
I agree.
I think a conservative number, and if more funds do become available in the future, then you can expand the program. But it came as quite a surprise to many of us as we near the end of Phase 2, how little money we had projected just a few years ago to have to finish out the program. So this was good news all around today.
Good news, and we're pleased about that. As we move on in the agenda, there's three different items. I'm really going to maybe like to start with the economic recovery strategy, the energy conservation block, and work upwards. You know, all of this, Councilmember Colvin-Roy, we've had so much action from Washington. There's stimulus money out there. There's new HUD money out there. And now we're starting to feel this, you and your colleagues and the mayor, as they move through your agendas. And one of these had to do with energy conservation block. Do you want to talk about it?
Oh, I'd love to talk about it. Well, you know that I've been one of the more active members from Minneapolis on the national level with National League of Cities, and that's because I serve on the Energy and Environment Committee.
Okay.
We worked for several years with Congress to get this energy efficiency block grant program created within law, but there wasn't any money behind it. So the good news is when the stimulus money came along, there was already a well-thought-out structure and a framework of where the money should go, what sort of projects should be eligible, and I'm really excited about it. Minneapolis, because of our size, is going to get $3.9 million. Most of that just because of our size. A couple $100,000 is competitive. We'll have to make an application, tell them exactly what we're doing with it. Half of it, 50% of that money, is going to be used to set up a revolving loan fund. Because if you look in our sustainability report, which we're going to look at later, one of the trends that we're not doing really well on is reducing carbon emissions and improving the air quality. There's a direct relationship between that and energy, and our homes are a big contributor. So with that revolving loan fund, half the money will be used for residences and the other half for commercial businesses. And there will be a local nonprofit who's been doing great energy work for years. You make an application for some of that money, be a very low-cost loan, but you'll also get the technical expertise to look at your property, give you a recommendation about where you get the most bang for your buck, and help you through the process. Yeah. All ready to go.
Right, now talk about a green strategy. If that isn't one, Councilmember Lilligren, I don't know what is, right?
Well, and I think Sandy's point about the work that she's and others have done on the national level is cannot be overemphasized. And with the recovery dollars, most of them, they come to the city in about 10 or 11 different sort of streams. These were all very well established streams, and they have certain requirements, reporting requirements, other requirements that we still have to meet, even though we're moving very quickly. The energy funding stream is the first time, that sort of new funds, that's the first time that those have flowed directly to cities. And absent the work that Councilmember Colvin-Roy and others have been doing to promote this well thought out plan, it wouldn't have been really a stimulus strategy. There would have been nowhere to put those funds so quickly within government.
So we're going to get a hold of some of money, and that means that if I'm a homeowner, Councilmember Colvin-Roy, or a business person, at some point I might be able to apply for and get some technical or physical assistance that will make my property cleaner. Is that the case?
And cheaper to run.
And cheaper to run.
It's just a win-win. Yeah. Whenever you improve your energy use, you use less energy. Yep. You spend less money.
Right. And this also, I suppose, is going to employ some people, won't it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. There is a connection even within our, I only talked about how half the money is going to be spent.
Yes.
There's definitely a connection in the plan for spending this money with with 3 jobs training programs here in Minneapolis to make sure that we have enough trained people to go out and install solar panels, or first of all, to even just recommission a building, assess what the energy needs are. So those are jobs for which people will need training, and that's part of the plan.
Good. Let's go up to one for a minute. Councilmember Lilligren, your colleagues met in special committees. There was a special council meeting, and a lot talked about in this sort of this, it sounds kind of innocuous, a consolidated amendment, but it does mean it's more of the stimulus recovery money, isn't it?
That's exactly right, Kent. And this is, again, more of the policy work or the government work to be able to spend these dollars. And President Obama was very clear, these dollars are to put people to work and to keep people working. And so it wasn't about developing a lot of new strategies or new policies, but using those existing streams to get these funds into place as quickly as possible. And outside of government, I think what's not as apparent is that we, as the governing body of Minneapolis, or every governmental jurisdiction, is still required to meet all of these federal guidelines, reporting standards and things, and procedural things. And that's what this action was. It was putting the consolidated plan amendment, so we're amending our consolidated plan so we can use these funds in this way.
Right, and I know a lot of this money will go for, some of this money goes for housing, goes for building housing. And then there was an item, tax credit assistance program, and I'm kind of assuming that has to do, is that like low-income housing tax credits?
Similar to that, but it's another tool. The city of Minneapolis receives an allocation annually of low-income housing tax credits, for example. That's a tool that we can use to finance housing projects, and it's a piece of government sort of funding that has value on the private market. So we award those to a program, to a project. The project developers go to the private market, sell those on the private market. So it leverages private funds into our sort of publicly supported projects. And the stimulus package provided a new sort of tax credit and another sort of new level of capacity for the city to generate these kinds of dollars. And so we're already, we want to put them into, the famous phrase, shovel-ready projects.
Yes.
As get them out into the market as quickly as possible.
Good. Well, that's, again, it seems like every show and every meeting, there's more evidence of this speeding up. We're pleased with that. Councilmember Colvin-Roy, certainly one of the big items today was the Minneapolis Charter Commission, the elections, the IRV, this kind of new way of holding elections. Would you want to tell our viewers what your colleagues did this morning?
Well, we have been planning on a dual track for a while because the voters in a referendum decided to use ranked choice voting. The nickname is instant runoff, but that's
ranked choice. I like that.
It's not
better.
truly accurate. Ranked choice voting. But then a lawsuit was brought by an organization who believed it was unconstitutional. And so in order for the city of Minneapolis to be ready to print ballots and hold the election on time, we've been planning for ranked choice voting, and we've kept up the planning for an election in the old way. The normal way.
Yeah.
Well, yesterday at 10 o'clock, we got the answer from the Supreme Court, the ruling. The Minnesota Supreme Court, right. The ruling that it's not unconstitutional and ranked choice voting, as Minneapolis has set it up, can go forward. So the reason I'm giving you that background is this morning's action was really a non-action. And if you watch the meeting, you'll see a fair amount of confusion.
We talk a lot about a non-action.
We did, a lot about a non-action. Procedurally, there was a motion in place to reestablish a primary election in case the Supreme Court, if need be, in case the Supreme Court decision went the other way.
Right.
So it didn't. The action this morning was to send back to the author that provisional plan to reinstate a primary if we needed it. But you'll hear a lot of conversation, and I think that's good. We need a lot of conversation because voting is very dearly held right in this country.
Yes.
And this will be a different way of voting. And so rather than just waiting for fall, we need to talk about when we can that the procedures will be a little different.
Right.
There won't be, I don't think there'll be much confusion over the single seat districts. Like when you go to vote for your council member, there's only one council member per ward.
Right.
There's only one mayor per city, right?
Yes.
But when you get down into some of the boards, like the park board, where each voter gets to choose 3 at-large members, or Board of Estimate and Taxation, where there are 2, gets a little more complicated.
Right. Councilmember Lilligren, Councilmember Colvin-Roy mentioned primary in the old way of doing it. Can you tell our viewers then, now that we have this, what does that mean for them as they turn toward fall?
I think that's one of the biggest things folks will notice is that we're not having a primary this
There's no
year.
primary election.
And once instant runoff voting is fully implemented and sort of a smoother process, that will be some of a budget savings. Now, of course, this first year, because of the high level of awareness and education and outreach that will need to take place, it might not be that huge of a saving, but there won't be the September primary. Rather, voters will go into the polling places in November. The first Tuesday in November, or actually more accurately, the first Tuesday following the first Monday in November. And vote, rank their choices. This is my number 1 candidate, my number 2, my number 3, and my number 4. If they so choose. People can just vote for one if that's all they want to do.
And I think that is a really important point to emphasize. You don't have to choose more than one name for an office if you don't want to. I hope people will understand why they might want to put a second and third choice, but just first of all, they shouldn't feel pressured to do that.
So in other words, I mean, and I was looking at that, and I think that is important because I think in the weeks to come, if I walk in this November and I want to vote the old way, I can. I can just vote for one person.
That's right.
But when I get to Park Board and Board of Estimate, I've always had, even under the old way, it said vote for. And then I think the counting's a little different, isn't it?
Yes.
If I can vote for 3, then those will all be ranked, and that's where I think the difference is.
And whether it's a multi-seat race or a single-seat race, you'll vote when the votes are tallied. If the first round on the single-seat race, if no one has reached the threshold number, and the multi-seat for that matter, in the single-seat race, it's 50%.
It's 50%.
If no one has reached that, then the person with the fewest votes is dropped off. that person's ballots are then re-examined, and the second choice person on those ballots then gets applied.
Right.
And so, and that continues until somebody meets that threshold on a
Right.
single seat, meets 50% plus one.
And that's exactly why the Supreme Court found it to be constitutional. The method of voting that Councilmember Lilligren just described means that no one voter gets more than one vote in a race.
Okay.
Apparently, back in 1919 or 20, when Duluth tried something similar and it was found to be unconstitutional, they did not do that. And the court found that one voter could end up with more cumulative impact than they should.
Right.
So that's the difference underlying our system.
Great.
And just for the record, because I know viewers were saying, well, who else has this? There are other cities that have this. Right?
San Francisco has been doing it since 2004.
Okay.
Cambridge, Massachusetts for decades. Have
Okay,
been doing
all
it for
right. Oh, that's true.
decades. And then there are cities and even countries worldwide, internationally, that have been doing it. But here in Minneapolis, we're just bumping up against sort of a drop-dead date where we had to choose one or the other. We couldn't continue in this dual track, as Councilmember Colroy was describing, and so that time is now. And the one critical piece of information we needed was from the Supreme Court on the constitutionality. Of it, and they said it's fine.
Council members, one other thing, I know that a lot of the press this week mentioned the fact that our elections director was leaving, but we have made some provisions for that, and that may not be as well known. Councilmember Colvin-Roy, we've moved to get somebody else in her place, have we not?
That's right. That was another action this morning, as a matter of fact, that was brought in to appoint Patrick O'Connor as an interim elections director for Minneapolis. Okay. And we're very lucky Mr. O'Connor was willing to accept the position. You can understand this is a position that's going to be under a lot of scrutiny.
Yes.
It's not simple to enact any new voting system, and this one's got some complications to it. But Mr. O'Connor did oversee elections in his role as a Hennepin County deputy. No, he wasn't deputy administrator. I've been gone there so long I don't remember his title. But he was an administrator over at Hennepin County that oversaw the elections there for many years.
So we're very lucky.
He has retired from Hennepin County, which is probably the only reason that we were lucky enough to get his time from now through the end of the year.
Right.
And there were a lot of thanks made today during the council meeting, and if folks stay tuned, they'll see that. But a couple people I think really should be called out, and one is the departing elections director, Cindy Reichert, and the work that she has done, which has been innovative work around ranked choice voting. She also was a key person within the Senate recount.
Yes.
And during her tenure here, it was probably the most high-profile elections director within the city of Minneapolis. And she's kind of entered into the national lexicon with the story of the untrue story of ballots in the trunk. But that'll, so she'll always be remembered. But she just did such a tremendous job in a very, very busy and high-profile time for her department. The other, I think, is Councilmember Glidden, who has our elections chair, and normally elections chair is a pretty perfunctory kind of role here on the council, and through her first term here and taking that chair, she has just had a lot of activity, and she's just really risen.
It's interesting, and I know we've talked to Councilmember Glidden about that before. And the other thing is I think everybody that's watching this program, all of your constituents, all of a sudden, elections is, I suppose, since 2000, is a big deal, and it's important. And they're interested in how we count and how we conduct our elections. And so, well, good. So we're on our way. And the next item that we have has been in and out of the news, and there's actually two items. One is the Shelters Project Agreement, and it has to do with Marquette and 2nd Avenue transit shelters. Two different kinds of items on the. I see that. I'm going to.
You have to backtrack now.
I'll tell you what. Let's go back for a minute. This won't be the first time. Before we talk about the transit shelters, let's talk about the 2007 sustainability report. We put that on because all of your colleagues have had some in-play on that. It had a big presentation. The sustainability report. What is that really about, Councilman?
We don't need to take a long time, Mr. Robbins. I just don't want to pass up the opportunity to remind people now this is the 4th year that the sustainability report has been produced. And for anybody who's interested in what all is in there, it's very easy to find. You go to the City of Minneapolis main web page, And up at the top, all you need to do is type in sustainability after the string that says City of Minneapolis. Type in sustainability. And there are 3 main sections to it: the healthy life, a green print, and a vital community. Now, the green print is the one that I've been most directly involved with, and I'm excited to say that we are hitting some of our goals there. This is the ew moment. We're hitting the goal that says no more. We had no combined sewer overflows into the Mississippi River for the second year.
Okay, years in a row. That's huge.
It is huge, and we're hitting our goals on permeability, which is one of the ways to help keep our lakes and rivers clean. Is that more of the water can filter into the ground where it falls. But we are a long ways away from hitting the goal for reducing carbon emissions, and there's a direct link to the number of unhealthy air days in Minneapolis, and so we're a long ways from that. While we're improving, so we're going the right direction, we are not improving it anywhere near the rate that we need to. So I think in all committees we'll be looking for ways to do that. That's why I wanted to highlight those programs for improving your energy efficiency at home. That will help. Right. The other 2 sections are equally important. I just don't know as much about them, and maybe you do.
Well, and then just briefly, and that the sustainability report is like a report card. That's exactly what it's like, and we have set our sustainability plan with a lot of policy input, and we're always re-examining it, improving it, but it's established a number of performance measures, and we're evaluating our performance. It's a very good tool for transparency. Our residents can go to our website, see how we're doing, and informs us, we need to put more effort and resources toward emissions reduction, or whatever that is. And it views sustainability beyond just sort of physical environmental sustainability, but what are those elements of a community that make it sustainable, reducing the number of infant mortalities, for example, increasing birth rate, improving education opportunities, youth activities. So there are other things that are related to the sustainability of the whole community, but it's a great document. It's very helpful to us as policymakers, but it's great for the community to see how we're doing.
I'm glad you highlighted that, because it makes Minneapolis' sustainability report is a little unique in that. Many cities have a sustainability report that really are focused on the environment and the physical condition of the community. Point. It is. For example, in a Healthy Life chapter, this year we achieved a 22% decrease in the number of children identified with lead poisoning. That's a goal that we set, and something that the department can measure against as they do their work during the year. Under a vital community, we met the target for reducing homicides and reached the lowest number of homicides since 1985. That's another one of the sort of goals that you can find and see our progress in some detail.
Yeah, this is, it's interesting, as Councilmember Lilligren, if I'm a constituent, if I'm a citizen, and I go to the website, I can say, well, I'm going to see how my city's doing, and it really is a report card, and then if I have concerns, I contact my elected officials, but this is kind of where I can start to see how the city's doing.
Yep.
And so this is available now. We ought to just emphasize that, and it's currently on our website, the sustainability report, not just in environmental things, but in all kinds of things like health activity, infant health activity, crimes, a number of other things, living wages in this report.
Graduation
rates, everything that we think, at least the elected people, the elected officials think, and I think everybody, that takes to make a good city. How does a city sustain itself? It's all there. All right, now let's see if I can get this right and go to the Marquette and 2nd Avenue Transit Shelters Project. This has been before everybody for a long time, Councilmember Colvin Roy. There's issues about who does the work and who gets the work. Tell us what happened this morning.
Well, there's also issues about what the shelters will look like and where they will be placed.
Okay, good.
So all of those issues being unresolved near the end of the time when we need to draw a contract. That's why you saw it come forward without a recommendation. Okay. But I just want to remind us that part of the reason for the rush here is these are a result of the Urban Partnership Agreement. Now, but they are not being paid for by the Urban Partnership Agreement. So we have this great opportunity that's completely remaking 2nd Avenue and Marquette in downtown. I know you've probably had complaints too. You know what I say?
If anyone's been driving downtown.
To people who are complaining about downtown, I say, well, if you ever want a chance to see what it was like to drive in Minneapolis before it became a big city, go down there now. You got a single-lane dirt road.
Yeah, but Marquette Avenue is a single-lane dirt road.
But a side product of the whole design which is intended to really, really improve the experience for transit riders and get 3 times as many bus riders through during rush hour, while therefore allowing more ease for the cars to get in and out. A side product is these new transit shelters. And we'd been working for a couple of years, Minneapolis had, to get new designs for the bus shelters. And we had put out an RFP, so we had a design back. The company that wanted to build them for us, and they were going to be paid for by the advertising, backed out because they no longer had the market. They couldn't sell the advertising even. Even the ad business is going down.
Yeah.
Okay. But we have to do this as part of the Urban Partnership Agreement. We want to get it done. So some of the business leaders from downtown Minneapolis stepped in. We had volunteer architects redesigned them.
Okay.
There was a very quick, intense discussion with the downtown council facilitating it to decide where they would all be. And there was also what you referred to, who was going to get the work. We have had some conversations clarifying our process when there's more than one government involved about who actually monitors the contracts for the minority and small business utilization.
I know that was a part of the discussion as well.
And it has, for this project, it has all come together. For other projects that are multi-government, we have another one, there's still work being done, but we are committed that we are not going to have that kind of confusion again between several levels of government about who's doing the hiring and who's monitoring that.
Councilmember Lilligren, this is interesting, isn't it, that we do have so much discussion about this, and you know how different this is. It's sort of different sometimes than we're used to, building a supermarket or a house or a vertical construction. Sometimes when you get into terms of transit stuff, as Councilmember Colvin said, it's not just the MCD or CPED or anyone else, it's the Metropolitan Council, and there's coordination issues, aren't there?
Right, and these are predominantly federal and state funds, and it's a project that extends from some park and rides up in Blaine all the way down to Lakeville, and the part in the city of Minneapolis is the second in Marquette. So you can imagine the complexities, and it was a very, very tight timeline. All of these projects need to be done by the end of 2010. Correct?
2009.
2009, this year.
This one is 2009.
So this came to us just in front of the stimulus dollars, but it really prepared this region to start responding quickly to these federal requirements.
And we have a little time, but you get a conflict here, don't you? Sometimes you get a tight time schedule. You get low bid requirements, and then all of a sudden you have minority workforce requirements and small business, and you have to put all of those in the same package.
Right. Well, I'm so glad Councilmember Colvin brought up that workforce goals of women and minority, skilled, unskilled, and contractors. And there was some great citizen activism that brought awareness to us that we weren't really partners in compliance and in monitoring, and now we are straightening that out.
Right.
And that's in the road project, just to be clear. That wasn't specific to the bus shelters, but it's all part of Second and Marquette.
I appreciate that, and I think we're out of time, but I expect we're going to hear more of that, and
More about elections.
and more about elections, but I think more about transportation's coming up. I want to thank both of you for being on the show.
Thanks.
It's been alluded to, but you can watch the entire City Council meeting of June 12th right after this program, and then you can see all of the discussion that went on about elections. We're pleased to be here today. It's been a busy day. We expect a busy summer and fall too as well. Until the next time when we talk about the City Council, I'm Kent Robbins for City Beat. Thanks for watching.